Sechus Megillah Daf Vav is a lengthy daf which includes a lot of Agadata as well as one Mishnah. The first part of the daf discusses the identification of the names of various cities and towns which are in Eretz Yisrael. This comes off a pasuk which we had just said that mentions the cities of Kineres, Ginosar, Rekes, and Hamas. The Gemara is going to try to explain what those are. And then we'll have some other Agadata about Edom, Germania Shel Edom, Italia Shel Edom, and a number of other places. Then we'll get to a Mishnah which introduces what happens when you have two Adars in a year. Which one do you keep Purim and the other mitzvahs of the month of Adar, such as the four Parshios, when do you keep those? So let's begin. First of all, we have one last statement at the end of the last Gemara here. The Gemara says, when do you lane the Megillah in the city of Ahutzal, which is in Binyamin? So there's two versions of what Rav Asi said or did. First version is that Rav Asi held it was a suffix if it was considered a walled city or not, and therefore you had to read the Megillah on both the 14th and the 15th of Adar. And the second version is that he held that it is definitely a walled city, and therefore you read it on the 15th of Adar. Okay, now to the subject of names. It begins with Rav Yochanan's explanation of what is Hamas. So Rav Yochanan says, when I was a young boy, I said something which I consulted the older people, and I found that I was correct. Hamas is Tiberia. The reason that the name Hamas is applied to it is because it has hot springs from the word Ham, the hot springs of the city of Tiberia. Now, Rav Yochanan said more. He said Rakas refers to Tziperi. Rakas means that it is like a river. It is like the side of a river, and the reason that name is applied is because Tziperi is high at a mountain, just like the bank of a river is high above the river itself. Now, as far as Kineres, that refers to the city of Ginosar, and the reason that Ginosar is called Kineres, Ginosar has very delicious fruits, as is mentioned in Chazal in a few places. The reason it's called Kineres is because Kineres is from the word kinar, meaning a harp, but just like a harp has a sweet sound, those fruits have a sweet taste. Okay, so what we've seen here is that Rakas is Tziperi. The Gemara now disagrees with that. The Gemara says that Rava says Rakas can't be Tziperi, Rakas is Tveria. And the Gemara is going to set out to prove that Rakas is Tveria. And the Gemara says, when somebody who is a great Talmid Chacham passes away in Vavel, they do Hespedim in Tveria. And the Hesped, the eulogy that they say is as follows: great is he in Sheshach. Sheshach refers to Vavel. Beis and Shin are interchangeable, and Laban and Chaf are interchangeable in the Atbash system. So, great Talmid Chacham from Vavel has been famous all the way to Rakas. Rakas meaning the place that this eulogizer is in, and this eulogizer is in Tveria. So he says his name is great in Rakas. So you see that Tveria is Rakas. We're going to see a few more proofs of that as well. When the actual coffin, the urn of that person comes to Tveria, Tveria is where there was a great Beis HaKros. The cemetery was in Tveria. So there was another eulogy at the time, and they said, Oye Sidi Mishri Rakas, lovers of Israel, livers of Rakas, Tzu v'kabel haruge ome, go and meet and greet the people from the valley, that is Vavel, who died. So this shows, again, that Rakas is Tveria. Another proof is that when Rabbi Zera died, the eulogy that was said by him in Tveria was as follows. They said, Eretz Shinar Harav Yolda, he was born in the land of Shinar, again that refers to Vavel, but Eretz Tzvi Gidla, he was raised in the land of Tzvi, that refers to Eretz Yisrael, Sha'ashuah, and it's the land of beauty, and he is the delight, he's the Shashuim of Eretz Yisrael. Oina la amar Rakas, ki ibda kli chamdasa. Woe to her, says Rakas, because it lost a very precious kli. So there you see three sources that clearly Rakas is Tveria. So Rakas is not Tziperi. So therefore, Rava says Rakas is Tveria. Kineres is Ginosar, that I agree to. Hamas is referring to a different place. Hamas is Chamei Gerar. Gerar has hot springs as well. Now, why is Tveria called Rakas? So from the word rake combined with mitzvah, somebody who's empty in Tveria, meaning the low class people of Tveria are still full of mitzvahs, as a Rimon is full of it as well. Now, Rabbi Yirmiyah says Rakas is actually the real name of the town. Tveria is a fake name. Tveria is applied to it because it's from the word Tibura, which means in the center, such as the Tibura, which refers to the navel of a Yumin, the belly button. So Tiberia is in the Tibur of Eretz Yisrael, is in the middle of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbah says that it's called Tiberia because it is Toiv Riyasa. It looks good. It has a fine appearance. Now, so far we've said that Rakas here is the first version was that it was Tzipori. Now we said Rakas is Tiberia. The Gemara says then what's Tzipori? The Gemara says Tzipori is Kitron. Kitron is a place mentioned in Psukim. And the Gemara says that Kitron refers to Tzipori. So the Gemara says that we have a problem with that as well. This is going to be a lengthy proof that Kitron is in the portion, it's in the Chelek of Zevulun, and Tzipori can't be in the portion of Zevulun. So first of all, how do you know Kitron is in the portion of Zevulun? So that comes from a pasuk, pretty clear, one in Shoftim, where it says that as Yoshvei Kitron, as Yoshvei Nachlael, let me get the whole pasuk. Zevulun lo horish as Yoshvei Kitron v'es Yoshvei Nahalo v'yeshvei Kanani v'kirbo v'ayu lamas. Zvulun failed to drive out the Canaanite inhabitants of the city of Kitron, which fell in its territory. Instead, Zvulun allowed them to stay there and pay taxes, and that was a problem. So he sees that Kitron was certainly in Zvulun's Chelek. Now, the Gemara says as well that Zvulun could not have had Tzipori. And the reason is because Tzipori is very good land, and Zvulun was very unhappy with his land. So the Gemara first discusses Zvulun being unhappy with his land. So the Gemara says, based on a pasuk which describes Zvulun going to war against Sisera, so it says as follows. It says, Zvulun am cheref nafshe lamus v'naftali al meroimei sadeh, which means Zvulun was a people which shamed its soul to death, and Naphtali was in the high places of the field. So the Gemara says this can't be understood literally. What it means to say is as follows: Zvulun was upset with its land. That's why it says it's cheref nafshe lamos. And Zvulun complained when it went to war. It said, "Oh, look at all the meromi sada of Naphtali. Look at all the fields that Naphtali has. I want fields like that too." So he complained, "Hashem, you gave all the other shvatim fields and hills, beautiful places, but me, you gave mountains. You gave rocky mountains that you can't farm. And besides that, you gave them a lot of land, and me, you gave a lot of lakes and rivers. So what's this useful for me?" So Hashem responded, and he said, "No, you're going to have the chilazon. These lakes and the shore of the Mediterranean upon which your chelik lies will have the chilazon, which all of Klal Yisrael is going to have to come to you to buy chilazon." And that's seen from the pasuk describing Zvulun, which says, "Amim har yikro," people will come to your mountains. Shem yizbach zivchi tzedek, ki shefa yamim yinaku, they'll suck out the prosperity from the sea, and that refers to sfune tmune chol, which means the hidden things in the sand. Now, what's that? So the Gemara says sfune refers to chilazon, which is hidden in the sand. Tmuni refers to the tuna fish, which is fished out off the coast of Zvulun's property. It's very profitable for them as well. And chol refers to white glass, which is very expensive, that you can make from the sand of Zvulun's shores. So now Zvulun said, "Hashem, how do I know that people aren't going to steal the chilazon from me? They'll come fish it themselves. I can't control everything." So he said, Hashem responded and said, "Anybody who takes it from you without paying for it will not get profit from it. It will not work. The ink that they use to make the ink that they make from the chilazon fish will not function properly unless they pay you for it, and therefore you're going to get good business from it." Okay, so that's the whole discussion of Zvulun being unhappy with his lot, but the problem is that Zvulun was complaining about his land, but if Kitron, which is clearly in Zvulun, is Tzipori, then Zvulun should be very happy with it, because Tzipori is very wonderful land. Tzipori is a great part of Eretz Yisrael, the Gemara says. So now the Gemara says, okay, maybe you'll tell me a couple of things that Tzipori doesn't have. You'll tell me it doesn't have chalav u'dvash, it doesn't have milk and honey. Rashi explains, milk and honey in a land means where the goats eat the figs of the tree, and the juice, the honey-like juice, runs out of the figs and mixes with the milk dripping from the udders of the goats, and you flow and it fills up, and then you have very beautiful, prosperous land. So Gemara says, you don't see that in Tzipori. Maybe that's what Zvulun wasn't happy about. So Gemara says it can't be. Rish Lakish says, I saw it in Tzipori, and it was a big area, 16 mil by 16 mil, which adds up to 4 parsois, very large area. So Gemara says, well, maybe you'll say even though it was a big area, it wasn't as much as the rest of Eretz Yisrael. Gemara says that's not true either, because Rabbi Chana said in the name of Rav Yechon, the total land in Eretz Yisrael that has milk and honey, has Zavas Chalav Devash, is a total of 22 parsa by 6 parsa, which is a total of 132 square parsa. And if Tzipori had 4 of those, then they had an eighth of the total, and therefore they had quite a significant share of the land that's Zavas Chalav Devash, flowing milk and honey. So the Gemara says, well, maybe Zvulun wasn't happy because even though it has milk and honey, Zvulun wanted fields. He wanted vineyards and fields, and he didn't have it. Gemara says that can't be. So that would be the answer. So really, Kitron is Tzipori, and Tzipori is in Zvulun's land, but Tzipori is high on a mountain. He didn't have fields and vineyards, which is what he wanted, and that fits very well because that's what he complained about. He said, "Naftali Amarei Mesada," the second half of the pasuk we quoted earlier, and therefore that's what he had. Okay, now the Gemara moves on to discuss the names of other places. So Rabbi Avo says there's a place called Ekron. The Torah speaks about Ekron in Sefer Tzefania. So Gemara says Ekron refers to Caesarea. It refers to Caesarea, a city belonging to the Romans, which is on the coast, the northern coast of Eretz Yisrael. And it is the daughter of Edom, Rabbi Avo says, meaning it's a Roman suburb, and it's between the sands, it's on the beach. And this was a big problem for Klal in the days of the Greeks, and when the Chashmonaim defeated it, they called it the Achidas Migdal Shir, the captured tower of Shir. Now, also about Ekron, we apply the pasuk that says, "V'hasiroisi damav mipiv v'shikutzav mibein shino v'nishar gamhu leilekenu v'hayakalaf v'Yehuda v'Ekron kivusi." I will remove the blood from his mouth, disgusting things from between his teeth. He will then be for our God, and he'll be like a chief of Yehuda, and Ekron should be like Yerushalayim. Yevusi refers to Yerushalayim. So the Gemara says, what does all this mean? So phrase by phrase. Hasirosi damav mipiv, I'll remove the blood from his mouth. That refers to getting rid of the avodah zarah of Bamaya. I'll remove shikutzav mibein shinav, the gross things from between his teeth. That refers to the avodah zarah of Galaya. Nishar gamhu leilekenu, he will remain loyal to Hashem. That refers to the Beis Medrash and the shuls in Edom in Rome, and in this case, he will still stay for Hashem, and it'll be like chief in Yehuda, and Ekron should be like Yerushalayim. That refers to the fact that the theaters and the circuses of Edom will be taken over by Klal Yisrael and will be used to give shiurim, classes of Torah for the masses. Okay, more places. Rav Yitzchak says Leshem. Leshem is Pamyas. Pamyas is what we call today Banyas, which is the source of the Jordan River in the north. So Rav Yitzchak says this refers to Caesarea, daughter of Edom, and it was a metropolin, the Gemara says, of kings. What does that mean? Metropolin, the Gemara says, means either that kings were born there, or it means that kings were appointed from there. Now the Gemara says, as far as Caesarea and Yerushalayim, Caesarea and Yerushalayim, these two places can never both be settled and inhabited at the same time. If someone tells you that they're both settled, it's not true. Also, they cannot be destroyed at the same time. If they're both empty, don't believe that either. One is always empty while the other is settled, and the other one may sometimes be settled while this one is empty, but never at the same time will they be empty or fully inhabited. Now, the Gemara says, where do you get this from? So the Gemara says it's from a pasuk that says, Imla'ah hacharava, I will fill it with that which is laid waste. When one fills, the other is laid waste. Another source of that is when Yaakov and Esav were within the womb, they were described as Ula'om, Mila'om Yamatz. One will be stronger than the other, so one will always be on the ascendance, while the other is on the descendancy. Now, this entire discussion was said by Rav Yitzchak. So the Gemara quotes another thing that Rav Yitzchak said about Edom, which is Esav. So Rav Yitzchak says, what is meant by the pasuk Yuchon Rasha Bal Lamad Tzedek? Show favor to the wicked, and he's not going to learn tzedek. He won't learn righteousness. So he says it was a conversation between Yitzchak and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where Yitzchak said, Hashem, please have mercy on Esav. And Hashem said, Esav's a Rasha. So Yitzchak said, Bal Lamad Tzedek, he never had a chance to learn a Torah, therefore he doesn't know better than that. And that he answered, Be'eretz Nechochos Ya'avel, he's going to destroy Eretz Yisrael, he's going to destroy Yerushalayim. And based on that, Yitzchak said, if so, Ubal Yireh Geis Hashem, let him not behold the beauty of Hashem. Now, similarly, Rav Yitzchak says, what is the meaning of Al Titein Hashem Avayei Rasha's Mamei Al Tafik Yerumu Sela? Hashem, do not grant the desire of the wicked one, do not remove his nose ring, that's something to hold him back, and do not allow them to be exalted. So this is a conversation between Yaakov and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yaakov said, Hashem, please do not give Esav, the Rasha, what he wants. Don't take away his nose ring. Don't set him free. The nose ring refers to Germania Shel Edom, which is Germany, according to Yaakov Emden, because they are filled with royal princes, warlords, and if you let them, they'll go forth and destroy the world. So Gemara describes that there are 300 crown princes in Germania Shel Edom and 365 chiefs in Rome, and every day they do battle with each other. The 365 chiefs, one for each day of the solar year, and because one of them is killed, they're busy appointing another one. That's what holds them back. If you would allow them free reign, they would go ahead and destroy the world. Now, Rav Yitzchak also says, famous Gemara, if somebody says, Yagati v'lei matzasi, lo yagati umatzasi, don't believe them. Someone says, in the Torah, I figured it out without trying, or I tried it and I couldn't figure it out. Both of those can't be true. You only figure it out, you only get Siyata Shmaya and understand the Torah if you work hard. Now, that refers to figuring it out in the first place. As far as remembering it, that requires a lot of chazara and siyata d'shmaya. You cannot remember it without HaKadosh Baruch Hu helping you, even if you work hard. And business as well, you will not be successful without HaKadosh Baruch Hu helping you. The Gemara now quotes one last teaching of Rav Yitzchak. This one will be challenged from a brayso, and the Gemara will offer 3 resolutions. So Rav Yitzchak says, if you see a rasha, a wicked person who's doing well, do not start up with him, because you're not going to win. This is supported, he says, by the pasuk in a Tehillim which says, Al tischar b'amareim, don't start up with evil people, because you're going to lose. Not only that, says Rabbi Yitzchak, but he's going to be successful in all his ways. As the pasuk says further, Yachilu derachav b'chol eis, his ways are successful. Also, he's going to defeat you in court, like it says, Mara mishvatecha minegdo, your judgments are far removed from him. Not only that, but he's also going to see his own enemies fall apart, like it says, Kol tzayrav yafech behem, all his enemies he blows at them. So the Gemara says, you're telling me that I'm not supposed to start up with the wicked. But it's not true, because Rav Shimon Bar Yochai says in the brayso, you're supposed to start up with the wicked. He quotes a pasuk in Mishlei, which says, Oizvei Torah Yahalu Rasha, those who leave Torah will praise the wicked. Shomrei Torah is Gerban, but the people who keep Torah, they will start up with the wicked people. So you see, you are supposed to. So the Gemara also quotes another brayso that says you're supposed to start up with the wicked, and if somebody tells you, but it says Al tischar b'mareim v'al tekane b'osei avla, it says the pasuk which we just quoted, which Rabbi Yitzchak just brought, it says don't start up with the wicked and do not be tekane, do not be zealous against Rishaim. So says this brayso, that's only something which people say because they're afraid. They're afraid because they know that they have a virus, and they're afraid that that will condemn them to lose. But it's not the correct explanation of those psukim. The correct explanation of those psukim is Al tischar b'mareim, don't compete with the wicked to try to be worse than they are. And Al tekane b'aseh avla, don't be jealous of people who are rishayim, people who do evil, because you want to be more like them. That's what it's saying. But you really should start up with them to challenge them and try to be better. Also, it says, Ayikane libcha b'chatoim, don't let your heart be jealous of people who do sins. Okay, so what we have here is a brayso, 2 braysos which contradict Rabbi Yitzchak. So Mar says it's not a kasha. 3 answers. First of all, Rabbi Yitzchak was referring to in a person's own affairs, his own personal issues. There he shouldn't start up with Rishaim. The brayso was referring to Mili D'Shmaya, for heavenly affairs. There you should stick up, you should stand up to Rishaim. Second answer is one is talking about a tzaddik gomer, he can stand up to Rishaim. One is talking about Rabbi Yitzchak was referring to one who is not a tzaddik gomer. And that's supported by a pasuk as well, where it says, Lama tabed boigdim, tachrish bevala rasha tzaddik mimenu. Why do you look upon those that are treacherous? Why are you quiet when the wicked swallow up those who are tzaddik mimenu, more righteous than they are? So you see, the Rishaim can sometimes swallow up people who are more righteous than them. somebody is all the way righteous, somebody who's a tzaddik gamor, they won't be able to do anything about it. And the third answer is that Rabbi Yitzchak was referring to the time when it's Hasham Esachekazah, as he said, when he's enjoying good fortune, not a regular time. In a regular time, you could start up with them. Okay, the Gemara concludes this discussion by referring to Italia Shel Yavan, Italy of Yavan, which the Gemara says is Rome. And the Gemara describes its splendor, which the Mepharshim explain is in order to show by many fold greater than that what the schar of tzaddikim will be. So the Gemara says it's 300 parsa by 300 parsa large. It has 365 marketplaces, one for each day of the year. The smallest market is where you buy birds, and that's as big as 16 mil by 16 mil, which is very large size. Each mil is 2,000 amos. The Gemara says the king eats in a different market every day of the year. Anybody who lives there or was born there gets a salary each day from the king. Even people who aren't living there anymore, but if they were born there, they get it, or people who are living there now that weren't born there, they all get from the king. There's 3,000 bathhouses, and there are 500 windows that are higher than the walls of the city to keep smoke off the walls of the city so it shouldn't turn black. The city on 4 sides, one side has the ocean, another side has mountains and hills, third side has an iron wall, and the fourth side has a chulsis matzula, a swamp, and a flat ground full of rocks. Okay, this takes us to the Mishnah, which discusses the difference between 2 months of Adar, first Adar, and the second Adar. So, our Mishnah says as follows. First of all, it says specifically the halacha for Megillah. It says, if you read the Megillah in the first Adar, because that at the time was the only Adar, so you planned on reading it, you didn't know there was going to be a second Adar, so you have to read it again in the next Adar. If they do an Adar Beis, they make the year into a leap year, you have to read it again in the second Adar. And the Mishnah says that the rule is as follows. There's no difference between the first Adar and the second Adar, except for reading the Megillah and Matanas Le'Evyonim. That means to say that these 2 mitzvahs can only be done in the second Adar. If you did them in the first Adar, it doesn't count. So when we say there's no difference between the first Adar and the second Adar, meaning to say you can do most mitzvahs in the first Adar. But these 2 you can only do in the second Adar. It doesn't count if you do it in the first Adar. Okay, now the Gemara begins. The Gemara will sum up what halachas apply in the month of Adar. So we have Megillah, we have Matanas Le'Evyonim. Our Mishnah mentions both of those are supposed to be done in the second Adar. Other halachos of Adar are the 4 parshias, the special 4 kriyas, parshas Shkalim, parshas Zachar, parshas Para, and parsha Chodesh. Those are all during the month of Adar. So Gemara says, you see in our Mishnah that those are supposed to be done in the first Adar, because our Mishnah does not, well, it can really be done in either Adar. Our Mishnah does not say that those should only be done in the second Adar. So therefore, our Mishnah holds Megillah and Matanas Le'Evyonim in the second Adar, 4 parshias in the first Adar. The Gemara says that does not fit with any of 3 opinions that we have in a Brisa. The Gemara will quote the 3 opinions and try to see how you could fit them in. So first of all, let's see the Brisa. So the first opinion in the Brisa is a Tanakama. The Tanakama says as follows. If somebody learned the Megillah in the first month and then they became a leap year, he has to read it again in the second Adar, because all the mitzvahs in the second Adar should be done in the first Adar. Everything is supposed to be done in the first Adar, except for Megillah. So the only thing to be done in the second is Megillah, according to this Brisa. That doesn't fit with our Mishnah, because our Mishnah said not only Megillah, but also Matanas Le'Evyonim. Now, what about the second opinion in this Mishnah? That's Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rav Yosi. He says you don't have to read the Megillah again. Any mitzvah can be done in the first Adar. That doesn't fit with our Mishnah for sure, because our Mishnah says Matanas Le'Evyonim and the Kriyim Megillah have to be in the second Adar, and Rav Yosi doesn't hold that way. Rav Eliezer, that is. Ben Rav Yosi says you don't have to do either of those in the second Adar. Let's try the third opinion. That's Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. He says everything has to be done only in the second Adar. So that doesn't fit with our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says the only things in the second Adar are Megillah and Matanas Le'Evyonim, but the 4 parshas can be done in the first Adar, so that doesn't fit either. So the Gemara therefore says we have trouble figuring out who our Mishnah fits with, which of these 3 opinions. Before the Gemara gets into that, the Gemara says, let's explain the difference between the Tanakama and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. They are similar because they seem to say that everything besides for Megillah cannot be done in the first Adar. So the Gemara says the difference between them is Megillah. and the 4 Parshias. That is, that according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, the 4 Parshias should be done in the second Adar. According to Tanna Kama, they should be done in the first Adar. And Mikra Megillah is between them also. On that, the Tanna Kama and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel agree they should be in the second Adar, but Rav Elazar ben Rav Yossi says that should be in the first Adar. Alright, so how do we fit our Mishnah in with one of these opinions? So the Gemara first wants to say that our Mishnah is really the Tanna Kama. The problem there was Matanos of Yonim, which our Mishnah said is in the second Adar. And the Tanna Kama said, the Raisa said, the only exception to the first Adar is Megillah, not Matanos of Yonim. So Gemara says, no, Matanos of Yonim is implied whenever you say Megillah, because Matanos of Yonim and Megillah go together. Wherever you do Megillah, that's when you do Matanos of Yonim, so it did not have to be listed independently. The second answer is that our Mishnah fits with Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Even though he said everything is supposed to be in the second Adar, you have to add a few words here. Everything that takes place on Purim should be in the second Adar. It means as far as Purim halachos, everything is in the second Adar, but non-Purim halachos in the month of Adar go to the first Adar. And that fits with our Mishnah, and the only thing that's in that category are the 4 Parshas, which should be in the first Adar. Now, what's halacha? Gemara says halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, that the Megillah and all 4 Parshas must be done in the second Adar. All right, now, what is the sources for the opinions that we had here? So, all opinions claim that they're supported by the pasuk in the Megillah that says that it should be b'chol shana v'shana. It should be the same every year. The ones who say it should be in the first Adar say just like every year it's the Adar closest to Shvat, so you use the first Adar, the one closest to Shvat. The other one says no, every year it's the Adar closest to Nisan. You use Adar closest to Nisan. So that one could go either way. Now, what is the logic behind their opinions? So the Gemara says the one who says to use the first Adar is because ein mavir al mitzvah, so you don't want to pass by an opportunity to do mitzvah and not to do it. The other one says that you want Geula to be close to Geula. The month of Nisan has Geula in it, redemption from Mitzrayim. You want the month of Adar, which has Geula in it from Haman, to come right before that, so that the 2 Geulas are together. And that takes precedence over ein mavir al mitzvahs. Now, the Gemara says there's another pasuk to say that it should be in the second Adar, which is where it says Igeres HaPurim Hazais Hashenis. The second letter of Purim that shows it should be in the second month. The Gemara says that we could have understood wrongly. We could have understood you're supposed to keep Purim in both months. For that, the pasuk of B'chol Shana V'Shana says it should be the same as every other year and only be in one month. Now, the other opinion is not bothered by Hashenis. He says that's to tell me that Purim was originally set up only in Shushan, and then Hashenis is that it was later sent around to the rest of the Jewish community outside of Shushan, established there as well.